Joining me now, Senior Advisor, Trump-Pence Campaign Reelect 2020, Mercedes Schlapp. Mercedes, great to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited about the new publication. I mean, you're also competing with the Washington Post. Let's just remember that.
Well, to a certain extent, I mean, they do cover Virginia, but yes, obviously, what we want to do.
Take on the
Mercedes,
challenge.
yeah.
Come on, John.
I know. I mean, look, they do cover Virginia, not really to the extent that we will, but they do cover it. But the real competition is going to be right here in Virginia. All the other papers have cut their staff down. And the beauty of our model, Mercedes, is I have proven that if you give people the truth and facts, they will flock to you. And that's why our show continues to expand. And our model is not based on clickbait. So, therefore, we don't have to have headlines that don't match reality. That's number one. The second thing is a search engine, if they shut us off, doesn't put our company under like it's done for many. So, it's kind of a technology today with a 1970s sales model. Now, somehow for me, that's work, right? Go figure. But we're excited about it. Mercedes, I am really excited about the last 2 weeks. The president has stayed on message. I thought some of his Sunday commentary was spot on, going to Florida with the police, defining Joe Biden. Everything I'm looking at now is starting to see the turnaround. How do you see this playing out now, Mercedes?
I do think it's starting to trend towards the president, and it's interesting because obviously there's so many polls out there where it's all over the place, and I do think, and with Biden really not doing very much, just kind of hanging out in the basement and doing these virtual events. But what I find is I've traveled across the country, and we're continuing to do our Women for Trump bus tours in a number of in a number of states, I should say. It's the enthusiasm is unreal. And the ground game is unprecedented in terms of the field staff we have in all these targeted states, and the fact that these are volunteers. These are people who are saying, we have got to get this president reelected. And I do agree with you that the president has, based on starting up the coronavirus briefings again, which I think, people greatly appreciate that because they want to know what the federal government is doing. It's very much still on the top of the minds of so many Americans across the country. And, also, I think when you see all of his endorsements from last week, the Florida Sheriff's Association basically saying we're backing up the president, we're endorsing him, and knowing that those people who defend and protect our communities are the ones being demonized by the far left. I think, Americans are really looking at this and saying, wait a second here, like they have gone too far. To your point, they're burning the Bible, they're burning the flags, the far left. And it's just so not in line in terms of what we need to do here in the United States.
Well, and Biden refuses to do anything about it. He refuses to condemn them because he can't, because he's only the nominee because they allowed him to get the nomination. So he's stuck. He can't do anything. He's stuck with these people. But I'm telling you, Mercedes, when you get up in the morning and look, the fake news is not going to cover it. They're like hiding it where they're trying to tell you the protesters in Portland are peaceful. And meantime, every store down there is burned down. But when you get up and you turn on your internet news or whatever you do, and you see people in that city taking American flags and Bibles and burning them, I don't see how Biden thinks that's going to be a pathway to victory, Mercedes.
I agree. I think that the fact that he has remained silent, that he's made comments, for example, where he's saying that they would redirect funds, and then in this interview, he stated that the police have become the enemy, and we know that and it's interesting because all these shows, I was on, they were on Fox, they keep saying, well, Joe Biden hasn't said he's going to defund the police. Joe Biden hasn't said he supports Medicare for all. I'm like, guys, have you read the fact that he's decided to sign his name off and sign a contract with Bernie Sanders and the unifying agenda? It's like, read the 102 pages where it says that they're going to eliminate immunity for police officers, where they're saying they're going to redirect resources. I don't know about you, but when they say redirect resources, that sounds to me like they're defunding the police. So I think that it's very important to continue to expose his record and the fact that he has shackled himself to the far left. There's no question. I mean, just even the fact that he's even considering Karen Bass, who's a communist sympathizer, who basically was part of this revolutionary group that would undermine our democracy in America because she was so supportive of the Castro regime and so linked up to the Castro regime, is so troubling. And it's just telling of Joe Biden and his bad judgment in surrounding himself with these far-left caricatures like AOC and Bernie Sanders, and because he knows that he has to appease the far-left because he has to calm down that base. I mean, but you know this, John. I mean, when you're a presidential candidate in a general election, you normally run in the center to win the general election. Well, that's not what Joe Biden is doing. He's attaching himself to the far left to try to be a successful candidate, and I just think that what he is signing up for are dangerous propositions for the United States that would literally undermine our democracy and destroy our economy.
You know, in 1992, Bill Clinton, they were trying to move him left, and in that campaign, when George H. Bush was running for re-election, he had this Sister Soldier moment. I don't know if you remember that, where she was very radical. And he was on the dais with her, and he just stood up to her and said, "No, I'm not going to do any of that. That stuff is crazy." And he got all kinds of criticism for that from the far left, etc. He ended up winning in a landslide. That was a different time. That was 28 years ago. Biden can't do that because what you have now, that element, that is the Democratic Party now. And look, during the first protest and the riots, and everybody was upset about George Floyd. And so everybody kind of went with it, and it was frustration, and we saw it in D.C., and people were upset, but they kind of went with it. See, now it's starting to turn, because now it doesn't have anything to do with George Floyd. Now it's burning Bibles, burning flags, stores are getting burned out, people are moving out, and now what we're seeing, Mercedes, is the reality of what happens when you defund the police, like New York City. Crime is up like 1,000%. You can no longer walk on the street. Now you're seeing Seattle, where the police chief there says, I can no longer protect you or your property because the city council took away certain things that we need to protect ourselves. Therefore, I can't put my officers, I can't deploy them. Now it's becoming a reality.
Yeah, and we always talk about this. I always feel like it's one of our conversations, but with our kids in sports, and you're on the sidelines, right, or in the bleachers, with your mask on, of course, in Virginia or in Maryland, where I was this weekend, and you know, you hear talking to some of these moms. It's they're from Virginia, a lot of them, and they're like, yeah, we don't want to live near the city anymore. It's too dangerous. Like, we want to find a place out in rural Virginia. Like, there's all these serious conversations happening about how even in suburbia America, they're starting to feel unsafe because they're too close to the city, and there's there's disturbances in the cities. And, it's calmed down right now in Washington, D.C., but when you look about what's happening in so many of these other cities, it's with the rise of violent crime, with the fact that they won't take charge and empower the police to do their jobs, is troubling. It's incredibly troubling. And that's what I think we need to decide. Are we going to vote for a safe America where our cities are protected and where our communities are protected, where the police can do their jobs? Or are we going to go with this Democrat liberal model of disbanding the police like they did in Minneapolis? And so I just think we're more common sense than that. I really do, and I have to believe that the American people will say, well, wait a second, President Trump, like him, don't like him, like his tweets, don't like his tweets. The guy's law and order. I mean, he's made it very clear of where he stands. And I think and there's definitely a discrepancy as to where Joe Biden's at. And I think we have to, I think all of us have to continue talking about this message of what the president stands for. And what's happening is that all these police associations, some of them who actually endorsed Obama and Biden in 2008 and 2012, have changed their minds. And they're going with the president because they recognize that the far left is there to destroy them. And really, I think it's just so troubling I think anyone who has a family member who's in the police department will vote for Donald Trump. I believe it. Because they're going, wait a second, you're going after my uncle, or you're going after my dad, or you're going after my brother or my aunt. Like, I'm not going to put up with that.
John Fredericks Radio Network, Trucking the Truth Across America. We're with Mercedes Schlapp, Senior Advisor, Trump-Pence 2020 campaign. Mercedes, on your bus tours, you're Women for Trump bus tours, and even like when you're out with your daughter, and she plays what, lacrosse? As I remember, what?
Yeah, you've got the
Okay,
baseball player. I've got the lacrosse player.
Yeah, yeah. So when we were out this past weekend with my son, the outrage of parents over not being able to put their kids in school. But nobody wants to say it publicly. Like, it's all behind a mask. But
yeah,
I must have talked to 50 out of 50 moms I talked to the past 2 weekends with baseball were just beside themselves that they can't send their child to school. Many of them now trying to put them in a Catholic school like our son's in. Is that something that's under the radar screen, Mercedes?
You know, it's a very interesting issue because I do think you find parents who are very nervous about sending their kids to school, which I respect. Look, I think parents have to make the best decisions for their kids. But I do think there needs to be options. There needs to be the option of in-class schooling, and I think there needs to be the option of distance learning for those parents who really don't want to send their kids to school. Totally get it. But I will tell you something. What we saw with Montgomery County, where this city council, I just can't believe it, or the county members, they literally made this decision where they're not allowing, think about this, they're not allowing private schools or religious schools to open till October 1st. So you have these Catholic schools who are ready to go. They've implemented these safe programs. Many of them are going back to school 5 days a week. And all of a sudden, the government has made the decision that, no, sorry, private schools, you guys have to shut down till October 1st or go virtual learning till October 1st. I mean, to me, it is such an outrage that these county officials think that they can have so much power that they can decide what private schools will do or not do. And it was interesting because I was reading an article last night where even Governor Hogan, which, you know, has his own issues, came out and was like, wait a second, I'm kind of concerned about the direction that Montgomery County is taking to impose this restriction on these private schools. And so, you know, I find that it just shows that these officials, which are not what I would say medical experts in any way, are making these random decisions that are impacting these private schools and these Catholic schools, which is outrageous. You know, and here's the deal, like, this is why the teachers' unions, I can't believe them. They really don't believe that teachers are essential. Like, they really don't. Like, so first responders, okay, let me tell you this, tutoring services, they're essential. So, like, if you have money and you can put your kid in a tutoring service for the summer, they're essential. They are open. You can go take classes there. You can make sure your kid is up to date. Yet our schools are not essential. Disney World is open. Disney World is open, yet we can't reopen our schools. I mean, it's outrageous, John. I mean, you feel like the world is like upside down right now.
Well, and what's even worse about that is they understand that because they hate private schools, and they understand that the longer they can stall them from opening, they cut their funding off. I mean, people are not going to continue to pay private schools money. Like our son goes to Atlantic Christian Shores in Chesapeake. That's a private Christian school. Well, you know, we got a partial refund for the March to May thing, online or not. I mean, it's not the same. So if we didn't have school in the fall, nobody would pay and the school would go out of business.
Yeah.
That's their real goal. Just get rid of them.
Yeah, and you know what you find is, and this, I was talking to a friend of mine who works for this organization that actually helps, like, they're Catholic schools that a lot of minority kids go to up in New York and in Philadelphia. And she was telling me, like, what's horrible is that they're trying to impose this on the private schools, even up in New York City, where they would shut down these Catholic schools. Now, you disproportionately impact black kids, Hispanic kids that depend, I mean, you know, blue-collar, you know, families that depend on these schools for their nutrition, especially for special needs kids who need to be in the classroom setting. I mean, I have one kid who's dyslexic, and let me tell you, the online learning is very difficult for her, and they have to be in a classroom setting. What they are doing to these children is creating a huge disadvantage. It's leading to mental health issues, the stress and anxiety on these children, and then the stress on the parents. these single parents or even working parents who are like, I have to decide between my kid and my job. That should not be an option. So let me tell you, those teachers' unions have been destructive. They do not care about our students, and guess who Joe Biden supports? He supports the teachers' unions. And the mere fact that those teachers' unions, this is why they know political theater. They know how to do this. They go out, put out body bags. They put out a sign that said, "Rest in peace to your favorite teacher." It's outrageous what they're doing, and not in any way thinking about the mental health of our students and the fact that you can open up these schools safely. You absolutely can. And the fact is that they are saying, no, I'll just get my paycheck and work minimal hours, is just something that I just find it to be so horrendous for our children. And it's why, I really applaud the Catholic schools and the Christian schools and the private schools who are willing to stand up to these county officials. Literally, Montgomery County, the private schools, if they open up, they get a misdemeanor or serve 1 year in jail. John, that's outrageous.
It's outrageous.
It's outrageous.
It's sick. I mean, it's sick. It's just government run amok, basically trying to manage every aspect of your life. But it's like the same thing when small businesses, when all these governors shut small businesses down. They hate small businesses. They hate charter schools that are not tied to the school board public funding. They hate private schools. These are things they hate. Except, of course, for their own kids. That's fine. They have their special private schools.
Totally.
But
You're right.
For the Catholic schools that aren't $50,000, that are $700 or $800 a month, those are the schools that they detest because they can reach too many people. But what is it? Look, I've only got a minute here, but what is the objective of the teachers here? What are they trying to do?
That's a great question. I find that that the teachers' unions are the most vocal. I mean, obviously, we've seen the president of the teachers' union, one of the teachers' unions, go out and basically say that businesses should adapt to the new reality that these schools aren't going to open. So think about the amount of power they have right now. And so that's why I really, we know what's happening with the Catholic schools. I can tell you in our Catholic school, the wait lists are, they have a huge wait list, and parents are just making this decision that public schools are just not good enough. And the problem is you're creating more disparity among the classes, because at the end of the day, those parents with resources can get tutors, can take care of their children, and they'll get a better education than those families who are, middle, lower class, lower income families where they cannot afford to have tutors, and these kids are not learning what they need learning. And that's what's so discouraging, that these teachers are saying, I'm not going to stand up for my students and say, you know what, let's do this in a way where we're 6 feet apart, where we're wearing our mask, where they sanitize the classrooms, where they're doing temperature checks, and do it that way. There are ways to reopen the schools safely, and I just think that this approach that these counties are taking and these governments are taking is not working, and it's not beneficial for our students.
Mercedes, always great to have you with us. Thanks for your time today, and I agree with you 100%. I think there's going to be a reckoning, and there's also might be, like you say, what you just said, there might be a fallout for public schools here. Just a lot of people. Look, I talked to a friend of mine, Joe Morrissey, this weekend, just enrolled his 3 kids in Catholic school, $1,800 a month. Said, look, I just got to suck it up because the alternative is they don't get an education. So I got a text here from Elizabeth in Arlington. She says Catholic schools in Arlington have a wait list for the first time ever. So,
great.
Maybe things are shifting. Like you say, Mercedes, maybe it's shifting. But I'm out of time for this segment. I want to thank Mercedes Schlapp for being with us, Senior Advisor, Trump-Pence 2020, the president turning the corner. He is going to win again. Mercedes, thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much.